Hello everyone and welcome to the Mirror's Edge closed beta. I'm James and we're here to have a little look at what's going on and what we think so far. We're going to have a look through a side mission, so it shouldn't be too spoilery. Let's see what Nomad has to say.
I'm trying, but what is that?
Art, Faith. Art.
Yeah? Could have fooled me.
Funny. Did you just come here to crush my self-esteem, or are you up for some actual work?
Sorry. I'm up.
Good. Word is Kruger Arms are developing a new type of drone sensor chip. I'm thinking we should grab one for ourselves, but there's the question of where they keep it.
Somewhere in Kruger Arms, maybe?
You're all wits today, huh? I had a guy working there who promised he'd sell me some docs with the info, but now he's reneging on the deal. So I figured you could just break into his place and grab them instead.
Sure. Shouldn't be a problem.
Cool. I'll send you his address. It's not far from here.
So this side mission's fairly typical of the other missions that I've played in the main story and the game as well, in the sense that you are traversing through the world, trying to find things or getting to places or whatever it might be. The combat elements are really minor this time around. If you think about the first Mirror's Edge, if you think about the first Mirror's Edge, the combat did kind of come in at a few points, which made a bit of a difficulty curve for some people, and I think they've addressed that. Although, obviously, it is still possible to die. The runner's vision has been enhanced for this version, so that you get the red stream that you can see directing you, as well as the highlighting things you can jump onto in red as well.
I can get in through that fan. I need to shut it down.
From a first impression, I'd say the general gameplay is probably a little bit easier than the original game. It feels very familiar. I mean, just that kind of first-person view, free running. I mean, it's very similar to what you felt getting into the first game. Yeah, runner's vision occasionally decides to turn off to presumably make you think a little bit, but it does normally come back, which is handy because you can get a bit lost otherwise. Pull the big lever,
The fan is off.
which is also red.
I can get in that way.
Good. The guy lives on the top floor.
Here we go. Oh. Yeah. Free running is obviously the name of the game, and the angles at which you hit things determine whether you run along them or you grab them and climb up them like I just did here, but it's not that often that you kind of come up against something which behaves like it shouldn't. It's normally your fault rather than the game's fault that you're plummeting to your death. In general, you do have to think a little bit about how you're getting around. I mean, there are a lot of surfaces which are highlighted in red, obviously, and the runner vision does help, but you still can get lost. But I think having the runner vision have a line as well as highlighting is definitely makes it a lot easier. Although it should be noted that you can turn that back to classic, i.e. just red stuff, or turn it off completely if you want.
Quite a jump. I'm on his balcony. And I can't get in from here.
Try the roof.
Another example of runner vision not showing you the way to go. Can make it tricky. The general feel and movement in the game is quite fluid. I mean, that's probably the biggest draw for the game itself, you know, the fact that the controls do immerse you in the game. And yeah, I mean, it's good. I think there's some upgrade issues which have been talked about the fact that there's a few things which you can't do from the off like you could originally, and I think one or two of them in particular, like the landing roll, which I've unlocked, so you'll see Faith doing in this gameplay, but without that, it can get pretty difficult to land and feel like you're carrying your momentum on.
When I'll show up and... I told him the deal was off. You're forcing me to call for backup.
The guy just showed up.
You should spend tonight familiarizing yourself with the data.
Any specifics you'd like me to
So there's obviously pickups, there's still bags to collect. Not that many of them in the beta obviously, but here's a first look at some combat. So there's a few different levels of enemies which I've come across, this being the kind of general standard enemy if you like. They've just got batons and they kind of pummel you a bit. This guy seems to have got stuck in the wall, but you know, it being a beta we can forgive that. It is quite entertaining. In combat itself you find that the game terms it as retaliation just there where Faith got pushed back, but basically if you attack in the same way over and over and over again you just get pushed back and you know you don't do any damage, so you have to vary it up a little bit.
Control, being spotted inside the perimeter.
Again, there are some enemies with guns, but it's really not a big part, and in fact they seem to be weaker than the enemies with the batons, so that's helpful. The trusty poles are still around the City of Glass. So there we go, that's the first bit. And now we'll skip along to the next bit in a minute. So as you can see, the game world, or the map at least, has a very similar look and feel. It is pretty expansive, although obviously you can't get into all of this on the beta, but you would imagine that this is pretty much the playable area in the game. So here's those upgrades we were talking about. You were given most of them unlocked in this beta build, but whether you start from scratch in the main game remains to be seen. Really, it's building your abilities in a fairly natural way rather than really changing things up. The gear is more story-based unlocks, so they kind of come along when they're needed. But as I say, the combat is fairly easy to pick up.
Hey, let's have a look at those docks.
So, what did you make of the info?
That new sensor chip spells trouble.
My thinking too.
Seems they're working on a new drone in the labs department of Kruger Arms. Maybe we could snatch the chip from there.
You mean maybe I could snatch one?
Yeah, you know, I would, if I could.
Never mind. I'll do it.
Great. I'll stay with you on comms.
Faith has so much sass in this game. Makes her quite an endearing character, to be honest.
It's a building with the big Kruger Arms sign on top. On the upper floor.
I mean, being a first-person game anyway, you know, you don't get a lot of character development, but
Good. See if you can find a way
it definitely refers to the first game in the storyline, so you'd benefit from playing the first one. Skips a little bit of the traversing across the city here to get to the meat of the action. But yeah, more lifts and hand events are always about. Surprising that, in a way, that the city leaves everything so open, but it explains in the kind of at the outset that really, as long as you leave the establishment alone, as it were, they turn a blind eye to the runners' activities. It's kind of an uneasy truce.
Should have something there.
Die, plant, die.
Found a note. It says the chip has been installed on a drone in the demo room.
That's a few floors up. Find an elevator.
Again, traversal really is the draw through the missions. You know, the combat is just really an aside. But it's, you know, nice of them to be clearly labelled. Doesn't seem to be any civilian people, well, certainly not on the rooftops, as you probably would imagine, but no civilians getting in your way as you can get in other games. I tend to favour the sliding tackle attack, which tends to be pretty effective at speed. Here's an elevator to hide the loading, and there we go.
I see it.
One of the biggest surprises really is the fact that you can just blast your way through so many doors
We need that ship.
without needing to get keys or anything. I think this section here is a really good example of how they've made the traversal, given it a point rather than just you walking between areas. Unfortunately, it seems that no matter how effectively you run, you can't really catch up with the drone, which is a shame, because if it had rewarded players who were particularly good, not like me obviously, because I'm not, then it would add another dimension to it. But it seems very on rails, as it were, from that point of view. I ended up only doing it once, so I don't know if you did kind of lose sight of the drone completely. It would kind of just hover off into the distance and you'd have to restart, but I presume so.
Jump on and grab it. You can handle your weight.
I think the cinematography here is probably the most effective use of it that I've seen in this beta.
I got it.
There we go, pick up a thing.
See you later.
No rush. Just the fact that Kruger Arms lost it should cause them a lot of trouble.
There's lots of people just hanging about like this guy. He just kind of stays there and watches you. Occasionally when you walk past people, they just make comments about some baddie.
Got eyes on a lead.
So that's a quick look at the Mirror's Edge closed beta. What did you think? Let us know in the comments. Are you looking forward to the game? Are you going to pick it up when it comes out finally? And if you like this video, then subscribe for more from Past the Controller. Thanks very much.